You can be seated. Thank you, praise team, and father and sister, and everyone else, all of you in the congregation, for singing so much. This may be a bit of a week-to-week basis until we figure out. I'm very cautious, we want to have the right person in here that fits the church and fits what we're trying to do. And there aren't a whole lot of music folks available. And as somebody once told me, usually if you're good at something, you're busy doing it. So be patient with us as we work through that. And in the meantime, we will go week to week, so to speak. And we'll need patience on all sides. And give and take and compromise in a good way and all those good things. And eventually we'll get settled in. Turn your Bibles, if you would, to the book of Proverbs chapter 1. So obviously this is Mother's Day. I've got pink on. I guess I just felt more motherly, not really. It just seemed appropriate to wear a girlish kind of a color or a soft color. Right? I mean, real men can wear pink. And if you're afraid to wear pink, then if you're confident in yourself, pink's not a problem. Proverbs chapter 1, I do want to take the instructions from Proverbs and apply them to families and fathers and specifically mothers this morning. And there's application here to everybody, to all people, to fathers, to mothers, and then to children. There's application for all things. Are we good? All right, good deal. Proverbs chapter 1, verse 7 through 9. I'm going to read these verses. And I'll really just make just several really plain and clear observations. I do not need those, if that's okay. I'm sorry. I know y'all are feeling something much better. Thank you. They're hot, the bright lights are hot, and they're bright and hot. So 4 quick observations, and I know it's Mother's Day, and y'all have places to go, and hopefully celebrate with your moms or with your children. And in a few minutes, we're going to have Philip and some of the ushers come down at the end of the service, and just before the offering, and hand out some little token gifts to you guys as well. But in the meantime, I just want to address mothers and fathers and children from the book of Proverbs. Great place to start reading if you're new to Bible study. This was the first book that I picked up on that was easy to read upon the recommendation of another person. And kind of just grew from there. So Proverbs chapter 1, verse 7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. It says, verse 8, now this is King Solomon writing to his son. So this is exactly what you want as you deal with your children or your grandchildren. You want advice. And we're not the first. When you become a parent, you feel like the very first person ever to be a parent. You know how annoying it is to get around a new parent and they're telling you all these things like you've never done them. And oh my baby won't sleep, or it threw up, and you're sitting there, or they put it all over Facebook, and you're going, you're not the first person to have a child. But we're all that way when we have our first child. It's new to us and it's mind-blowing. And I remember having our first child and saying, well, where do I go for instructions? I know I had parents that did a great job, but I need black ink on white paper. How do I do this? Because I was scared to death. We drove home down East-West Connector, and I thought, why in the world did they let us have this thing? Really, that was my thought, was it not? We both went down East-West Connector from Cobb General, and we're looking at each other like, we're just kind of kids ourselves, and they're letting us take this 6'3" thing home. And a little bitty, and I drove in the right-hand lane at about 30 miles an hour, and I blew at everybody that got anywhere near me, because I thought, I'm the first person to ever have a kid. And we were terrified. So I went to the book of Proverbs, and it told me some things. And I've failed at a lot of them, I'm sure, and will continue to. But it does give us sound counsel. Verse 7 through 9, fear the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. My son, hear the instruction of your father, and do not forsake the law of your mother. For there will be a graceful ornament on your head. My son's going to laugh at this verse. And chains about your neck. That doesn't sound good, does it? So let's look at what this means this morning. Observation number 1. If you're a new parent, or have been a parent, or will be a parent, and that covers all of us, probably. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. So when you're thinking to yourself, as a mother, as a father, as a parent, how do I, they let me go home with it. They didn't send me home with a book. What do I do first? And according to Solomon here, this is advice to all parents. To all of us, the fear of the Lord is the very beginning of knowledge. In other words, if you don't have the fear of the Lord, any knowledge you accumulate afterwards isn't going to do you any good. As a matter of fact, I'm thinking of a famous atheist in America right now that I think is from Britain. And he is, I think, a nuclear physicist. And he's terribly intelligent. And I think about how he doesn't have the fear of the Lord in his heart and his mind. And all of the evidence that he looks at takes him further and further and further away from God. It is not bringing him closer to God. He translates it through a godless lens. And everything he learns about God's creation takes him further away from God. That's exactly what Solomon's saying here. If you don't have the fear of God in your mind and in your heart, any knowledge after that is actually going to be counterproductive. So number one, advice to all parents. So then we ask ourselves, what exactly is the fear of the Lord? Deuteronomy chapter 10, if you would. This was just in our daily reading. We're not going to flip around too much this morning. But I do want to read this. Deuteronomy chapter 10. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and then Deuteronomy, fifth book of the Bible, the Pentateuch here. This is a great explanation of the fear of the Lord. You know, when you Google this, Got Questions, fantastic website, and you try to get advice or kind of direction. I've studied the fear of the Lord I don't know how many times, and for some reason, when I read in any text the fear of the Lord, my mind is a little bit, it shouldn't be, but it's not clear. Do y'all get that way about certain terms in the Bible that you should know? And I read it and I say, well, what does he mean? I'm supposed to wake up trembling because God exists? Is that what this means? No, not exactly. Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse 12 and 13. And now, Israel, what does the Lord your God require of you but to fear the Lord your God? So we have it again. It's all through the Bible, the fear of the Lord, the fear of the Lord, the fear of the Lord. And we read it and we say, well, my mind is a little bit, the water's kind of muddy. I can't spell this out. But the Bible spells it out for us. What does it require of you, O Israel, but to fear the Lord your God? And then he explains it. To walk in all of his ways and to love him. To serve the Lord your God with all of your heart and with all of your soul. And to keep the commandments of the Lord and his statutes which I commanded you today for your good. Okay? Isn't that an explanation? So I have to realize I don't have to reinvent the wheel. It is not up to me to translate this Bible. It isn't up to me to see a term in Scripture and not know what it means. The Bible is the best interpreter of the Bible. So when I ask myself again, if the fear of the Lord is the beginning of all knowledge, what does it mean to fear the Lord? And I still can't define it exactly, but I can tell you what it looks like because Deuteronomy says, if I fear the Lord, I will love God and I will keep his commandments, and that is for my good. Right? So the fear of the Lord, the beginning of knowledge. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, and the fear of the Lord is respecting him. I think there is a bit of a factor of fear. I mean, if you're talking about someone that spoke the stars into existence and everything, I always think of stars, these mighty, and these galaxies. You know, like Louis Giglio said, you believe in a Big Bang? Absolutely. God spoke and bang, it happened. And like he said, you did not want to be there. So is there a fear and reverence for God? Yes, but the fear of God in that sense of an emotional fear of knowing what he's capable of draws us to him, and we fear him and respect him, and we're in awe of him, and we sing about him, and then we obey him. So fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. This is advice to all of us. If we don't have that, then we're starting off as parents on a bad note. And your kids will hear what you say, but my goodness, they won't forget what you do. And we're already realizing that in our own home. So observation number 2. And listen, before I get into this one, this is not meant to be hurtful. If this isn't what your family looks like, if you've gone through divorce, this isn't to beat people up. It isn't to make people feel guilty. But I do want to point out something in the text. There is a family here. There is a God-ordained, designed family. Look at verse 8. My son, hear the instruction of your father, second person, and do not forsake the law of your mother. So we have it right here, don't we? A father, a mother, and a son. And again, this isn't to belittle anything else, or sometimes we have to piece family together and make it work the best we can. I'm not minimizing that. I'm not judging that. I'm just making the point, folks, that God has designed the family a specific way to be. It is a structure designed by God and will never improve on it. It is not a product of evolution. Can you imagine? Think about, I know I pick on evolution all the time, but I can't. Evolution isn't a person. I'm not beating up another preacher. It's not my job. God will take care of them. My job is to pick on evolution at times. How did evolution create the family? Because I know we have these modern families these days and all these making light. But folks, for all of recorded history, the family basically has been a father, a mother, and a child. And you can't start a family. We have kids in here. You can't start one another way, right? What did evolution produce? 2 women and, okay, where did the child come from? 2 men? No. Evolution produces nothing. Evolution creates nothing. Evolution tries to interpret what is already here. And again, science creates nothing. Science only interprets what has already been created. So let's not let science become a God. It's only there to interpret. Let's not let it become a God. It's only there to kind of try to guide people to interpret science. God has created the family all the way back to Genesis chapter 1:28. God put a man and a woman together. He blesses them, and then he told them to do something, didn't he? Know your most needed, right? Be fruitful and multiply. And then what did he do? Think about this. This is so simple. Man, woman, child, and then get to work, right? Put a man and a woman together, covenantal relationship. He says, be fruitful and multiply. Gave them the ability to do that. Science didn't do that. It just tries to understand it. And then he told Adam and Eve, I want you to manage the earth. He gave them a job. Believe it or not, a job is not part of the curse. You ever think about that? The job got harder after the curse. I don't think Adam and Eve suffered with 95-degree days. I just really don't think he did. I think, what is it in San Diego? A perfect 72-year round? I think it was about, 68, 72. Humidity of the devil, right? You and your wife have children and get to work. That's family. What happens when we don't get to work? We don't get to eat. This is so simple. We'll never improve on it. We see a family in verse 8. And then third, and I'm moving quickly, and listen to this, the mother is instrumental in teaching. In a day where people think that our Bible minimizes and thinks very little of women or is sexist in every way, look at what Solomon told his son. You know what he told him? Listen to your mom. Not the mom only, but listen to your mom. She's not there only to make you peanut butter and jelly sandwiches or cut up pineapple or all the other millions of little things that would not get done by the dads. I'm telling you, all my children would have choked to death on their food by now because I'm not chopping up the food. You know what I mean? You get about 18 months old and that's it. Get a knife, I'll dull the blade, and you chop your own food up and you eat it. Adam was, I think, about 12 years old, and my wife was still chopping, and not really, but not far from that. And I said, honey, his wife is not going to want to chop up his food. But mothers aren't there just to dice up the pineapple so that my dog can get all the leftovers. My wife is there to instruct the son. My son, hear the instruction of your father and do not forsake the law. The law. Boy, it feels like a law sometimes, doesn't it? Of your mother. Now, my mom, I got a story to tell here really quickly. Not hurry. Oh, we're good. We're really good. Okay. I was telling my daughters this. We were talking about snakes. I don't know why the other day, and I was explaining to them, what you got to watch out for, and the kind you got to worry about. And I know some of you think you have to worry about all of them, but let's not kill all snakes. Some of them are good. But it's interesting that all people by nature hate snakes. Isn't that interesting? What other animal do all people hate like a snake? Part of the curse. Part of the curse. So, and I was speaking on Mom, we're talking about chains about the neck and how that doesn't sound so pleasant, but it is. We'll get to that in just a minute. But don't forsake the law of your mother. And I think my girls are kind of asking me, Mom, what kind of mother was she? And I said, I was out in the yard one day, and my dog's barking and foaming actually at the mouth. You're welcome for that mental image. And I walked over to see what he was doing, and there was a snake in the ditch. I could take you to the exact spot between us and the McMitchens. And not only is it a snake, it's a copperhead. And not only is it a copperhead, and I know we exaggerate as the years go on. I was about 10 or 11 or maybe 12, so I'm pretty young. And I know these snowflakes these days can't imagine that, right? But I looked and I thought, I'm gonna kill the snake. I mean, that's my job, right? That's what Genesis told me to do. Put my head, foot on his head and crush it. But it has fangs, so I can't use my foot, so I went inside and got my pellet gun. And I remember, and Mom probably don't remember this. We're talking about the law of your mother. Mom was pretty loose. Just, we kind of had some freedom here and there in a good way. And I went in and I said, I ran in a hurry. And she said, hey, what's wrong? With something wrong? I said, no, there's a copperhead out in the ditch and I'm going to kill it. And I don't know if she didn't believe me or just didn't really care a whole lot, but there was a 4 foot long, I measured him. He was as long as my pellet rifle. Because after I killed him, I laid him out. Then I measured the pellet rifle and I said, this is a big snake. And I said, there's a copperhead and I'm going to go kill it. Okay. Don't watch. And I don't think they believed me, but I went outside and I killed this thing. And I pumped the pellet gun up over and over and I shot him. If you've ever shot a snake, if you don't sever the head, you're really just ticking him off. And I shot him, and after about the second shot, he curled up and he caught back. I remember his head was waving like swaying, looking at me, and I thought, how far can they? Right? How far? Yeah. So I reached out, way too close. Do you know this story? And I stuck the pellet gun at the snake's mouth, and he struck it. And I heard his fang hit the metal. Never forget, distinct sound. Pulled the trigger, killed him. And then the dumb part was, I picked him up. The dumb part was I picked him up behind the head, and y'all know it's hard to kill a snake. And I got a stick and put it in his mouth because I had to see the fangs. I heard him, but I didn't see him. And you raise the stick up, and it forces him down. And these little hypodermic, clear-looking needles came out. And a drip of venom dripped over the barrel of my pellet rifle. It was one of the coolest days of my childhood. But my mom and dad were inside, just let me be a kid, thank the Lord. All that to say this, when you think of the law of your mother, don't think of it in a way as everything that she won't let you do to have any fun. My mom let me have some fun. My dad let me have some fun. We chopped down trees and we shot stuff and, got lost in the woods, all of which is foreign to some of you guys these days. What does it mean, though, when it says, don't forsake the law of your mother? What does that mean? I mean, the average person in the average congregation is not a studied scholar and theologian. But when you look up the word law here, it does not mean unreasonable rules of stuff you can't go do to have fun. Now, maybe it would be a good rule to not put a stick in a snake's mouth to find the fangs. I told my daughter, said I had the wherewithal, would have cut the fangs out and kept them. I'd have them today. It'd be a cool story. What does it mean, law, though? Do you realize that this actually is referring to the Pentateuch? When it says, don't forget the law of your mother, he is referring not to your mother's unreasonable rules at times. That feels like a chain about your neck. He's referring to this, specifically, first 5 books of the Bible. And some of you maybe sit there and think, well, I don't know if I taught my kid the Bible, like a theologian. But let me ask you this. Don't forsake the law of your mother. When they come to Jesus and they ask him, what is the greatest commandment? I know I'll refer to this a lot. They come to him and they say, hey, if you're a teacher and you're this big mighty person, what is the greatest commandment in the Bible? And they're trying to trip him up. They want a wrong answer so they can have an excuse to do what they're going to do anyway, which is kill him. They're going to kill him. They don't have a good reason. And for quite a time of Jesus' life, they only are trying to produce a reason to make themselves maybe feel better about doing what they've already planned to do, which is kill him. What does Jesus say, though? I mean, they're talking about the whole Bible, and Jesus says, they say, what's the greatest commandment in here? And Jesus says, love the Lord your God with all of your heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. So when the Bible says, son, don't forget the law of your mother, if you're a child, think of it this way. The number one law in the Bible is loving God and loving man. And if you're a parent thinking about the overwhelming responsibility to teach your child the law, which we should strive to do, simplify it in your mind the way Jesus did and say, if I can teach my child to love God with everything, and the evidence of that will be love for your neighbor with everything, I've done my job. Right? If your child lives and dies and on their deathbed is thinking about you as a parent and saying, well, they didn't leave me no money, they didn't leave me no stuff, they didn't leave me no inheritance, but they taught me to love God and they taught me to love my fellow man. Success, right? Job well done. So if you're sitting here this morning as a parent, as I do, and I think, money? Am I leaving this guy some money? I don't think so. I'll leave my lawnmower. You can have my lawnmower, weed eater, my edger, okay? That's your inheritance. But you know what takes absolutely no money? And honestly, it doesn't take a lot of intelligence. There are different levels of intelligence. We were at our daughter's gymnastics thing yesterday, which was at a middle school, and I walked by this little graph, and I forget the name of it, but it's a new way to analyze a kid's IQ. And they really shouldn't have put it up because, I was feeling pretty bad about myself. Because I looked at it and it's like, the score down here, like 500, it was like construction worker. I was like, oh, cool, that's me. And then way over here, it's like 1,300, and it was scientist. And then teacher, and I was like, well, I cut grass and I teach, kind of? I'm really messed up. It's like 511, right? You can't help your intelligence level, folks. What you're born with is what you're born with, and the IQ really doesn't fluctuate too much. But you know what doesn't take a lot of intelligence? This is so comforting. Wisdom. There's no commandment in the Bible to have a lot of intelligence. There are tons of commandments to have a lot of wisdom, and wisdom begins with fearing God. It takes no intelligence. It takes no money. It doesn't matter what your last name is. It doesn't matter what your parents did or didn't leave you. It doesn't matter how important y'all were in the community or how nobody knew your last name. It doesn't matter. Every parent in here can take this verse and say, I am going to teach my child the law, which in summary means I'm going to teach my child to love God. Love God, not affirm Him as a lot of Americans do. Yeah, there's a God, I like my beer, and I like my music, or whatever that. Love God with a passion. And the evidence that you love God with a passion isn't that you love America and you're patriotic. It's that you love your fellow man. And it could mean that you love the enemy. So, number 3, the mother's instrumental in teaching. Number 4, and we'll be finished. This is the benefit. Okay, so we begin with advice to all parents. Wisdom, true wisdom. We see family in these verses cannot be improved on. The mother's instrumental in the teaching of the law, not just the cutting up of sandwiches or teaching your children gardening or whatever. I don't want to be sexist or sound, cooking and all that stuff. There's more to it. Number 4, there's a benefit. Look at verse 9. They will be a graceful ornament on your head. My favorite part, and chains about your neck. Right? The law of your mother. Can you just see like a rusty old chain? And like tagged on it is like all the stuff I cannot do as a child. Are y'all thinking back to childhood, like stuff you weren't allowed to do? We didn't have a lot of stuff. We could chew gum and kill snakes and have a good bit of fun. But you can think back to things. I think back to my school in high school, my Christian school, that wouldn't let us do a lot of stuff. You know, it was for our good, but at the time you were rebellious, and you're like, well, why can't I have fun? And that was our joke. If it's fun, you need to stop. That's not what he means here. What does he mean here? This is what he's saying. If you will teach your child the law, and there's two parts to this. If your child will not depart from it. So mom and dad, you can do your job, and child, you cannot do your job. So if you sit here this morning and you've got a strained relationship with your child and you didn't do everything right, as none of us do, but you can say to yourself, I tried to teach my child to love God, and I tried to teach my child to love his neighbor. It's up to the child now, right? My son, if you will not depart from the law of your mother, it will be an ornament on your head and chains about your neck. What does this mean? Proverbs chapter 4 on the ornament here. Just a couple pages over, verse 4, chapter 4, verse 7 through 9. Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore get wisdom, and in all of your getting, get understanding. Exalt her, that's wisdom, and she will promote you. She will bring you honor when you embrace her. She will place, that's wisdom, on your head an ornament of grace, a crown of glory she will deliver to you. Doesn't take money to be respected in the community, does it? I know that automatically the money thing kind of does garner respect, but it doesn't take money. I mean, some of the people that I can think back in my past that I respected the most had nothing, but they had character. So an ornament about your head is speaking of respect, and then it says chains about your neck. This speaks of bestowing honor and respect. In other words, if the parent will teach the child the law and wisdom and all that comes with it, and the son will not depart from it, by its very virtue, your child will be respected by his peers. And sometimes it's all we can control. So we wrap this up. Moms and parents, and this is terrifying. I mean, it just is. It's not complicated, but it keeps you awake at night sometimes. Your ability to parent well begins with your relationship with Christ. Think about this. All the stuff you can give your child, all the things, all the education you can give them, which we need to, and the money or inheritance or whatever it is, all the things you can give them, if you did not teach them a love for Christ, where is it going to take them but further away from God? So moms and parents, our ability begins with our relationship with God. And then secondly, this benefit of you teaching them the law and them not rejecting it, both sides are at work. God is at work, three sides are at work. The benefit is greater than any inheritance. Remember another Proverbs that says a good name, maybe it's James, a good name is rather to be chosen in great riches. Let me just meditate on that for a minute. Of all the things I want my kids to do and learn and be, and some of them are good and some of them they're too American and too Western and too stuff-centered. And if the Bible is true, and it is, it's telling me that a good name is better than anything else, than material wealth. Think about the people that you know that might be on top somewhere. Not everybody, and the people that you know right now that are willing to go over or through anybody to get what they want. I was talking to a customer the other day, and we were talking about retirement. And I said, I used to have this plan for retirement. And I'm not, if anybody does this, And I said, we had a rental house, right? And that was going to be retirement, get a few of these things. But I said, I couldn't manage them. I mean, I can't. Then we're going to, flip the house and buy this and do that. And I told them, I said, I know it can be done, but I can't do what I would like to do in real estate without hurting other people. I just can't. I mean, what am I going to teach my kids When my kids are older and they're looking back at their mom and me, what is it that they're going to look at their mom and remember? Money? Or stuff? Or self-centeredness? Or are they going to say, respect? Right? Genuine respect. My parents taught me how to be genuine and how to shoot straight with people and how to handle situations properly. And most importantly, my mom taught me how to love God and love my fellow man. So that's my hope this morning for all of us. And if we can write it on paper, even encourage you to prioritize and think about all the things you want your kids to be and put at the top of the list. If I don't get to number 2 through 10, number 1 is I want them to love God and love their fellow man, and they're going to have to see it in me, or it probably isn't going to happen. Let's pray. Lord, I thank you this morning for your word. I thank you for Proverbs, these sayings that were recorded by Solomon, inspired by you, preserved by you. Lord, here we are almost 3,000 years later reading the same advice that never gets old, it never wears out, it never can be improved upon. God, as we honor our mothers this morning, Lord, may there be no regrets. Help us all to realize that none of us will do the job in hindsight that we wish we would have done, but Lord, the big picture, help us to teach our children to love you. I ask you all these things this morning in Christ's name.